In the swirling blue embrace of the Aegean Sea, where sunlight dances on gentle waves and ancient winds whisper of long-lost empires, there lies an island whose story is carved not only into stone but into the very spirit of mankind. Rhodes, a name that stirs echoes of triumph, of culture, of endurance through the ages. When we think of ancient cities, Athens with its wisdom, Sparta with its discipline, Rome with its empire, we must never forget Rhodes, the jewel of the Eastern Mediterranean. It was more than just a port, more than just a trading hub. Rhodes stood as a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, intelligence, and ambition were woven together by a people determined to leave their mark upon history. And leave it they did in the form of one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the mighty Colossus of Rhodes. But to understand how such a wonder came to be, one must first journey through the rich tapestry of Rhodes itself. This is no mere account of a statue. This is the epic saga of a people whose prosperity and vision culminated in a symbol that would defy time, crumble in tragedy, and yet live on in eternal legend. Our story begins with Rhodes itself. Its rise, its splendor, its flourishing power in a world of fierce empires and turbulent tides. Long before steel ships sliced through oceans, long before the rumblings of distant cannon fire, Rhodes stood in quiet majesty, kissed by the sea and blessed by the gods. From the moment one sets foot upon its shores, it is easy to see why this island would command the fascination of history. Its hills roll like waves frozen in green, its cliffs stand proudly over the restless sea, and its harbors beckon with the promise of trade, riches, and destiny. But Rhodes was not always a beacon of prosperity. Like all great civilizations, it began humbly, with settlers, fishermen, and warriors carving out existence from the stubborn earth. Yet it was not merely survival that guided these people. From the earliest days, the Rhodians were dreamers, sailors, and architects of ambition. As the centuries turned, Rhodes grew, not in size but in influence. It was strategically nestled at the crossroads between the Greek mainland, the sprawling Persian Empire, and the Egyptian kingdoms of the south. Like a vigilant sentinel, Rhodes sat at the very mouth of maritime trade routes, a pearl gleaming where east met west. Merchants from distant lands found their way to Rhodes, their ships heavy with spices from Arabia, silks from Asia, papyrus from Egypt, and fine oils from the Greek heartlands. The harbors swelled with activity, and the city streets became rivers of culture and commerce. But prosperity did not come without struggle. The Rhodians, proud and fiercely independent, were no strangers to war. They fought off invaders, resisted domination, and shaped themselves into formidable seafarers. Their ships, lean and fast, patrolled the Aegean like steel-clad falcons, guarding the island's wealth and freedom. In these early centuries, Rhodes was not one city, but 3: Lindos, Ialissos, and Kamiros. Each city held its own traditions, its own heroes, and its own fierce pride. For generations, these 3 sisters competed, sometimes squabbled, but always shared the pulse of the island. It was during the 4th century BC that a monumental decision changed Rhodes forever, a decision to unify. No longer content to remain divided, the 3 cities allied, a union to create a single, magnificent city that would rival the greatest of the ancient world. They chose the northern tip of the island, where land curved like a loving arm around the sea, forming a natural harbor kissed by the gods of commerce. Thus, the city of Rhodes was born, a fusion of ambition and wisdom, strength and art. Its birth marked the beginning of a golden age that would echo for centuries. With unification came prosperity like never before. The streets of Rhodes were paved in marble. Its temples stood tall, adorned with the finest sculptures. Its theaters sang with the voices of poets, actors, and philosophers. Towering walls encircled the city, defiant and proud, built to repel even the mightiest of armies. The Rhodians were not only masters of commerce and defense, they were guardians of knowledge. Schools flourished within their walls, attracting scholars from across the ancient world. Astronomy, mathematics, rhetoric, and art thrived in Rhodes, carried forward by brilliant minds who understood that knowledge was as powerful as any weapon. Yet, amid this prosperity, Rhodes never lost its warrior spirit. Enemies lurked on all horizons, pirates that prowled the waters, empires that hungered for control of its harbors, and political forces that plotted from afar. But Rhodes, blessed by the favor of Helios, the sun god himself, stood unbowed. In the turbulent world of ancient politics, Rhodes mastered the art of diplomacy. Rhodian envoys sailed to the courts of Athens, to the regal halls of Egypt, to the distant reaches of Persia. Their silver tongues forged alliances, balanced power, and ensured Rhodes was not crushed between larger empires, but rather danced gracefully between them. And so Rhodes grew. Her harbors bristled with merchant vessels. Her marketplaces overflowed with goods from the far corners of the earth, and her citizens walked with pride, knowing their city was counted among the grandest of human achievements. But even in prosperity, the winds of history are fickle. The clouds of war gathered on the horizon in the shadow of a rising conqueror, Alexander the Great. His ambitions stretched across continents, and though his presence brought new opportunities, it also threatened to swallow smaller states in its insatiable appetite. Rhodes, however, played its cards wisely. When Alexander swept across Asia, Rhodes secured its independence, aligning itself with Macedonian interests without surrendering its autonomy. It was a delicate dance, one that Rhodes mastered with precision. When Alexander fell, as all conquerors must, the world splintered into rival empires. The successors, known as the Diadochi, carved up Alexander's domain like wolves fighting over a carcass. And in this chaotic new world, Rhodes stood as a shimmering oasis of stability and prosperity. Yet, prosperity breeds envy, and envy breeds conflict. The Diadochi watched Rhodes with greedy eyes. Control the island and you control the trade routes. You command influence over the eastern Mediterranean. You inherit the wealth that poured through its harbors. And so, the time came when Rhodes, wealthy and proud, faced a siege unlike any before. A siege that would test its strength, its unity, and its very soul. Yet it is often in the crucible of struggle that the greatest achievements are forged. In the year 305 BC, Demetrius I of Macedon, known to history as Demetrius Poliorcetes, or the Besieger, sailed with a grand armada, determined to bring Rhodes to its knees. His forces were vast, his weapons terrifying, his ambition relentless. Demetrius brought with him towering siege engines, catapults of immense power, and the dreaded Helepolis, the taker of cities. A siege tower so monstrous it seemed to scrape the sky. The Rhodians, outnumbered and encircled, stood defiant. They reinforced their walls, mobilized every able citizen, and turned their harbors into fortresses. Women, men, and children alike contributed to the defense, repairing battlements, forging weapons, and ensuring the spirit of Rhodes burned brighter than any invading torch. For a full year, the siege raged. Demetrius unleashed wave after wave of assault, his engines pounding the mighty walls, his ships choking the harbors. But Rhodes refused to fall. Day after day, the Rhodians repelled the invaders, their unity proving stronger than Demetrius's might. The siege, though brutal, ended in victory not for the invader, but for the defenders. Rhodes, battered but unbroken, stood tall. Demetrius, frustrated and humbled, withdrew his forces, leaving behind a treasure trove of abandoned war machines, weapons, and siege engines. The people of Rhodes emerged from the ashes of war with heads held high, their spirit sharpened like tempered steel. In the aftermath, the decision was made, a decision that would echo through history. The spoils left behind by the defeated invaders would not simply be melted down for coin or repurposed for future wars. No, Rhodes would take the tools of war and transform them into a symbol of peace, victory, and divine favor. The Rhodians would erect a monument the world had never seen, a colossal statue to honor Helios, the protector of their city, the god of the sun whose light had guided them through darkness. This statue would not merely commemorate a battle. It would stand as an eternal testament to Rhodes' triumph, prosperity, and place among the great civilizations of the world. It was to be called the Colossus of Rhodes. And so, from humble beginnings to golden prosperity, through unity, trade, wisdom, and war, the people of Rhodes carved their place into history. A people who built more than a city, who dared to dream bigger than the horizon, and who prepared to craft a wonder that would outlive them all. The merchants, traders, and adventurers who visited the island would be greeted by this enormous figure, and in their hearts, they would know. The Rhodians knew that prosperity was fleeting, that peace was often temporary in a world driven by power struggles. By constructing a colossal Helios, they aimed to anchor their own identity, to create a symbol of unity that would stand tall above their divisions, their fears, and the uncertainties of the future. In every hammer strike upon molten bronze, in every stone hoisted high, in every inch of the rising figure, the Rhodians infused their resilience, their reverence, and their dreams. The choice of materials spoke volumes too. For years, preparations for the Colossus stirred the island's heart. It was more than a construction project, it became a cultural movement. The city's artisans debated the finest details: how Helios should stand, where his gaze should fall, how his muscles should ripple with power, how his face should radiate wisdom. Scholars discussed the mathematical proportions, ensuring the statue was both breathtaking and structurally sound. Priests and oracles were consulted to guarantee that the design honored Helios in the most pious manner. And amidst this whirlwind of planning, the citizens of Rhodes felt a renewed sense of purpose. And so the decision was made. They entrusted the colossal task to a local genius, a sculptor whose name would forever be intertwined with human ambition: Chairs of Lindos. Chairs, himself a Rhodian, understood the pulse of his people. A student of Lysippos, the famed sculptor of Alexander the Great, Chairs inherited not just skill but vision. He knew that the Colossus could not merely be a statue, it had to embody movement, power, and divinity all at once. The location was chosen with care. It would stand near the harbor, its towering presence visible to every ship that approached, its shimmering bronze reflecting the sunlight that had given Rhodes its name. And thus the work began. For 12 long years, laborers toiled under the unforgiving sun. The sounds of hammers rang through the air, ropes groaned under the weight of iron, the furnaces blazed day and night, melting down the remnants of war into the future's triumph. Chairs directed every moment, his eyes sharpened by vision, his hands guiding hundreds of workers, engineers, and artisans. Slowly, piece by piece, the figure of Helios rose from the ground, defying the limits of human endeavor. His muscular frame emerged from the scaffolding like a god reborn, his face carved in noble serenity, his arm raised in triumph, or perhaps shielding his eyes as he looked into the distant sea. And all the while, the people of Rhodes watched with pride swelling in their hearts, witnessing their story being etched into the sky. When the final rivet was hammered, when the final layer of bronze gleamed beneath the sun's gaze, the Colossus stood in magnificent completion. Over 30 meters high, 110 feet of towering grandeur, the statue of Helios gazed over the sparkling waters of the harbor. His feet stood firm upon the earth that had been defended with courage, his body a symphony of strength and grace, his face illuminated by the very sun he represented. The entire island celebrated as priests offered sacrifices, poets sang verses, and elders recounted the siege to wide-eyed children. The Colossus was not simply an artwork. It was a phenomenon. It was Rhodes itself, forged in bronze, standing unyielding and divine. From that day forward, the story of Rhodes was forever bound to the Colossus. Sailors from the known world sailed to gaze upon its wonder. Scholars wrote of its unmatched craftsmanship. Traders marveled at its presence as they entered the bustling harbors. And Rhodes, already prosperous, soared to new heights of glory. It was said that the Colossus could be seen from miles out at sea, that it served as a guiding light to weary travelers and a beacon of civilization to those who sought refuge from chaos. But beneath the awe lay a deeper truth. The Colossus reminded every Rhodian that their city was strong not because of walls, not because of armies, but because of unity, courage, and faith. It taught them that in the ashes of devastation, they could build greatness. But as with many tales of grandeur, nature's might proved indifferent to human ambition. Approximately 54 years after its completion, in 226 BC, a devastating earthquake struck the island. The Colossus, mighty and majestic, could not withstand the force of the earth's violent shaking. The bronze shell cracked, the iron framework bent and snapped, and the great statue fell. The imagery is haunting. A giant brought low, limbs shattered, torso collapsed. A silent giant crumpled at the feet of those who had once revered it as a god. The statue's fall was catastrophic not only in physical terms but in symbolic ones. The people of Rhodes mourned deeply. For many, the Colossus was more than a statue. It was the soul of the island, the guardian spirit that had protected them for decades. However, the disaster did not break Rhodes. The people refused to rebuild the statue, despite offers from foreign rulers to fund a restoration. Instead, they saw the ruins as a testament to the island's enduring spirit, an acknowledgement of nature's power, but also human resilience. Legend tells us that the fallen statue lay where it fell for centuries, a haunting ruin that continued to awe all who saw it. Visitors marveled at its size, collecting fragments and relics, further cementing its status as a wonder of the ancient world. The Colossus's legacy lives on today in many ways. It was one of the original 7 wonders of the ancient world, celebrated for its size, craftsmanship, and audacity. It influenced future generations to dream bigger, to blend art and engineering, and to reach for the skies. The idea of a statue guarding a harbor inspired countless monuments, from the Statue of Liberty in New York to various colossal sculptures worldwide. The mythic stories surrounding it, of gods, heroes, and fallen giants, continue to captivate imaginations and inspire storytelling. So, the Colossus of Rhodes remains a beacon, not merely of bronze and stone but of human spirit. It is the echo of a people who dared to immortalize their victory, who pushed the boundaries of possibility, who rose from siege to glory, and whose story still shines brightly through the centuries. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this.